The Rangers lose a heartbreaker in extra innings because of the greatness of Shohei Ohtani, a frustrating, confusing loss that has a lot of implications. Plus, is Owen White coming up to the major leagues? We're going to break down all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 5 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Today is Tuesday, June 13th. Your Rangers are 41-24, still alone atop the AL West with a 4.5 game lead on those Astros. Before we get into today's news and notes and breakdown of a wild game last night, this episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, before I get into the wild 11-inning loss by the Rangers last night, the news of the day came out about 5 minutes, it seemed like, before I started recording this podcast. Owen White, it appears, is coming up to the major leagues. The Rangers are going to start Cody Bradford on this Tuesday game in place of Jon Gray, who is out for this game with a, quote, blister thing, which I think is just a blister. I don't know if it's a blister-like thing, but I feel like you should just say blister. But that was the quote from Bruce Bochy. So no Jon Gray, unfortunately, in this one. That's a real blow for the Rangers because of how incredibly well he's been throwing as of late. That has been a thing with Jon Gray. He has had blister issues. He missed some time early in last season with blister issues, and that's just been a thing for his career that the Rangers kind of knew about him. But instead of Owen White starting, it is going to be Cody Bradford, according to Rangers PR. And then they said a roster move will be made before the game. So we'll see in probably a few hours. You probably already know this. If you're driving home, the Rangers may have already announced that roster move, or maybe it'll be right before the game when the Rangers actually announce what's going on. But the big story is that Owen White is coming up. I'm confused. The multiple reports came out, one from Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic, one from Evan Grant, who confirmed it, of the Dallas Morning News, that the Rangers are going to call up Owen White for this game. Evan Grant thinks it may be more of a one-day type outing. It doesn't seem like he's going to start in this game, and I don't think he's going to start on Wednesday's game. It looks like that's going to be Andrew Heaney, but the Rangers had talked about augmenting their rotation by adding a guy, basically getting a Cody Bradford start is what it seemed like is going to be, because they are in the middle of a stretch of 30 games in 31 days, and now with Jon Gray having missed the start, they can't do that. They have to call up Cody Bradford to start in place of Jon Gray during this stretch of 30 games in 31 days, and maybe this means that Owen White is going to come up and pitch one game. Maybe it'll be tomorrow's game, and they'll bump back the starters, and that would mean Nathan Eovaldi would not pitch versus Shohei Ohtani on Thursday, which would be a darn shame, because I really think it's going to be an incredible starting pitching matchup if it happens, but it's looking like maybe that's still going to be the case, because the Rangers haven't really announced much of anything at this point. But Owen White, I think, is just about ready. One of the big concerns about him this year is he's had a neck injury that he's been dealing with all season long, so the velocity has not quite been there. He's been fighting through it. He's been pitching mostly fairly well, especially his last 2 starts in the month of June have been excellent. The last time that he pitched was June 7th. He went against Corpus Christi. He threw 7 innings with just 1 hit, no runs at all, 2 walks and 6 strikeouts. The start before that, it was against San Antonio. He went 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, both of which were earned, both of which were solo home runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. In the month of June, he's got those 2 starts, combined 13 innings, a 1.38 ERA, and a combined 0.69 whip, which is pretty darn nice and also very freaking good. If he's not the top pitching prospect in the Rangers system, then it's Jack Leiter. It's kind of a coin toss between those 2 guys at the moment. Both of them are very good. It seems like Leiter had been on a little bit more of a tear as of late. He had a great month of May, where it looks like that Owen White is having a better month of June. I think that White's a little bit closer to being fully polished and ready for a promotion. And I thought that, if the Rangers are going to call up somebody for one game and it's not going to be Cody Bradford, then I thought Owen White made sense for for one start. I don't think he's ready to be there full time. I don't know if the velocity is back. I have not seen any reports on that. But when I talked with Grant Schiller last week in that Monday episode where we had incomplete information about Jacob DeGrom and how he would feel about that. But as soon as I was texting with Grant a couple days ago about Owen White, and I thought, I'm like, is he about ready for promotion? He said, well, once the velocity starts to come back, then he's not long for AA. And if he shows what he's been doing for the past couple years and is healthy, or at least healthy enough to stay on the mound and is showing that velocity and premium stuff, then he wouldn't be long for AAA either. And it seems like the Rangers might have some openings in the rotation, especially if Jon Gray has to go on the IL. That would be a devastating blow for the Rangers, especially with the last time through the rotation has not been good. This rotation has not been what it had been for the first, 20-something starts since Jacob DeGrom went out. By the way, we'll talk about his surgery a little bit later on in the show because it happened on Monday morning. But the Rangers don't have necessarily a whole lot of options, especially in AAA. You go look at that AAA rotation, it's basically Cody Bradford and a lot of mess. I mean, there's Cole Winn, who has an 8.49 ERA in 10 starts. There is Kyle Cody, who has a 7.5 ERA in 8 starts. There's James Marvel, who's got 6 starts under his belt. He's got an ERA over 7. Jake Latz has got 3 starts under his belt. He's got an ERA just 6 points shy of 8. And then there's Robert Duggar, who's started 12 games and has a 4.98 ERA. There's not a whole lot there. And if you want to go down to AA, well, Jack Leiter's just not ready. He's just not ready. His development has been good. It's been improving. But if you throw him against big leaguers right now, it's going to shoot his confidence. He's going to get lit up. He's going to walk a lot of guys. And it is going to undermine, I think, a lot of the progress that he's made. So if you're asking about Jack Leiter, no, not even for one start. I just don't think that is what would be best for him right now. And if you look at other guys in that rotation, Nick Krauth has got a ERA over 5.5 in AA. That's not happening. Takeo Roby just had some kind of shoulder injury. I'm not exactly sure what it is last Sunday. So we haven't seen him in a little bit, and he's not ready either. He's 21 years old. Don't call him up. Ryan Garcia has not had a lot of success this year in his first stint in AA, 6.70 ERA in 11 starts. So there's just really not a whole lot else there that the Rangers could do. And I think maybe part of it is that the Rangers just need some length. After going 11 innings last night, and the guy who probably would have gotten a lot of the innings in this game if the Rangers had to go with a full bullpen game was Cody Bradford, Cole Ragans, who his line looks a lot worse than I think it actually was. I mean, the pitch that he left up to Shohei Ohtani, it was 98 miles an hour up and in, out of the strike zone. He was trying to go down and away with it, but it's 98 miles an hour up and in, and Shohei Ohtani just freaking turns on it and inside outs it the opposite field for a home run on the first pitch of the inning, because, of course, it's freaking Shohei Ohtani. But I'm excited for Owen White getting this call-up. I don't think he's going to stay. I'm really hoping if he does stay, then I think that means that Jon Gray is probably going on the IL. And if Owen White's velocity is back, then I think he can stick around for a couple of trips through the rotation while Gray is on the IL until Gray comes back. But it's not an ideal spot to be in. The Rangers don't have as much depth as they thought. The reason you buy a bazillion different starting pitchers at the beginning of the year is because injuries happen. There have been not that many starting pitcher injuries to the top 5 guys outside of the DeGrom injury, and now with Dane Dunning stepping into that 5th starter role. The Rangers have been mostly healthy. This is, I believe, the first missed start of any of the opening day rotation that wasn't named Jacob DeGrom. So the Rangers have gotten lucky with that. They need to keep getting lucky. They hopefully only have to sustain one missed start by Jon Gray, because if it goes more than that, then we're going to get into a little bit of what I think should happen in that instance. We're going to break down this 11-inning game and look at which Rangers are doing well in the early returns on All-Star voting. But first, this episode is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is the best place to get your last-minute tickets. They've got all kinds of different deals, and sometimes it's really hard to plan things months in advance. Sometimes you just spur of the moment want to go see a Rangers game. Maybe you want to go see Shohei Ohtani pitch on Thursday. I know I sure would if I was free. Would have been nice. But you can definitely go do that. And if you're going to go do that for last minute tickets, the Game Time is the perfect place for you. You get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you'll never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Wednesday's show, hopefully I'm going to be talking about maybe a Major League debut from Owen White. The Rangers take on the Angels this week and catch every pitch of the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, this was a frustrating loss by the Rangers, and it just felt like so many different things happened. Going back, I had to go back and rewatch the highlights of this game just to kind of remember everything that happened, because there was so much to keep track of. This is the big takeaways for me in this game was a frustrating outing for Dane Dunning, but going back and looking at it, I don't think it was necessarily as much his fault as the line might indicate. He did allow 4 runs, 3 of which were earned. I think only 2 of them should be earned, because one of them scored on a throwing error by Adolis Garcia. One of them scored on a wild pitch. Maybe if they score on your wild pitch, which is an error but counts as a pitcher error, maybe that still counts as an earned run because it's technically your fault. I don't know. But 5 walks in this one was really frustrating. I know 3 of them came to or combined to Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, and for the most part, he did a decent job of working around some of those base runners. Like I said, only 2 of the runs were actually driven in by hits. The others were actually, I think only one of them actually. One of them was a sac fly, one of them was that throwing error, and one of them was the wild pitch. So really only one of them, I believe, was driven in by an actual hit. But when you have that many base runners on, it's nice to be able to work around them, but it's even nicer to just not have them. Dunning has done a good job this year of limiting the walks. That is something that had plagued him quite a bit in years past, and one of the reasons why I wasn't the biggest believer on him being a guy who you really wanted in your starting rotation. But this year, when he was limiting the walks and limiting the base runners, it was much better results. But when you have those guys on, you don't have the strikeout stuff to get away with it. You did get weak ground balls and was able to get a couple of double plays turned by this Rangers defense, but still, it was a frustrating day because he just could not do what he had been doing. And one of those errors, I know, was charged as a throwing error to Adolis Garcia, but I really think it probably should have been a fielding error by Marcus Semien. It was a throw on from the warning track. There were runners on first and second, and Adolis was trying to keep the runner from being able to go to third or to go to second, and because the guy was already going to go to third, but he hits Marcus Semien basically in the glove, and Marcus didn't really body it up, didn't get in front of it, so that even if he didn't quite pick it cleanly because he was just trying to pick it, so not the best throw, but still I think a perfectly fine throw, because he picked it so badly it kicked away, and Corey Seager was not able to go and get to it and keep the runner from scoring, who moved to third on the throw. Like it was just a textbook just miscue, which is something the Rangers haven't really done. This is the second defensive miscue by Marcus Semien in the past week, which is not something you can really normally say. This is just not a great day for Marcus Semien. He was the final out in this one, struck out to go 0 for 7 for the first time in his career. It happens. I'm not going to blame Marcus for this one. There were a lot of things that went wrong for the Rangers. Just kind of a weird day that things just never went right for the Rangers. They just did not get their breaks, and sometimes them's the breaks. Sometimes that's what happens. It's easy to say that this is a fluky loss and shake it off, and you can say that when the Rangers have been as good as they have been. They still have a 4.5 game lead in the AL West. They lost a half game on the Astros, who did not play last night, but have been kind of struggling as of late. These Angels they're a good team. They're third place in the AL West. They're, I believe, a game behind the Astros at this point. So they're 37-31, a pretty good team. And sometimes you just don't get the breaks. And sometimes Shohei Ohtani just does Shohei Ohtani things. He's got multiple home runs in this one, retakes the American League lead in home runs with his 19th and 20th home runs of the year. And both of those pitches that he hit for home runs were fastballs that were inside to him, and he takes them the opposite field. The first one was a Grant Anderson solo shot. It was 93 miles an hour, down and in, like as down and in perfectly in the strike zone, exactly where you would want it. And Shohei Ohtani just turns on it. It takes it to the opposite field, 459 feet, 114 miles an hour off the bat. And I know it's frustrating to just get beaten by this guy. And the Rangers have been beaten by Trout and Ohtani doing Trout and Ohtani things quite a few times the last few years. But you just also got to stop and kind of appreciate the insanity and greatness of great players when they are on the field. I know it's frustrating to watch them do great things against your team, but still, that was just honestly incredible. I was just so impressed that he could do that. He could turn on a pitch inside out at 459 feet to the opposite field like that. And there was not a lot of velocity on the first one. It was 93 miles an hour. It takes 116 miles an hour off the bat. That's just nuts. That's just absolutely nuts. And oh, by the way, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball as well, and he's going to pitch against the Rangers on Thursday. Like, this is just stupid. And I've loved watching Shohei Ohtani on the Angels, mainly because they haven't been a threat, and the Rangers haven't really done anything during his time with the Angels. But I'm going to be really glad now that the Rangers are actually competing and having to play the Angels a lot, that they're not going to have to face Shohei Ohtani nearly as much when he leaves them next year. Maybe he comes to the Rangers, maybe he goes somewhere else, but I'm just going to be glad that the Rangers aren't going to have to get lit up by Shohei Ohtani. And in the pregame show, they were talking about how Ohtani hasn't really done much against the Rangers this year. That just kind of felt like it was inviting trouble, honestly. Like, oh, look, he's, I think, 2 for 12 against the Rangers so far this year with just a couple of walks and no extra base hits. And I'm like, oh, no. I mean, not that the broadcast jinx had anything to do with it, but just kind of pointing that out, you think, oh, well, it's Shohei Ohtani. Eventually he's going to get to everybody because that's just what Shohei Ohtani does, because he's incredibly good. And you know what? I'm willing to just shake this off and say it happens, especially with some of the things that went wrong for the Rangers from the bottom of the ninth on. The Rangers had multiple chances to win it in the ninth and the 10th inning, and it was just really frustrating and confusing. I was going back and watching specifically the Adolis Garcia double in the ninth inning. Corey Seager got on with a walk. Then Nathaniel Lowe struck out, which is a frustrating strikeout, especially since the first strike that he was given was very much not a strike. Strike 3 was absolutely in the strike zone. I think he probably should have swung at that, but it was basically a perfect pitch. There wasn't a whole lot that he could do with it, and he did miss his spot, so I didn't think he was going to get the call, but he did. Then Adolis Garcia comes in and smashes a double to right center field. Corey Seager's on first, and Adolis is able to get in there pretty easily to second base. But going back and watching it, I had someone suggest, I think I saw a couple people suggest that Corey Seager should have scored on that double. And going back and looking, he absolutely could not have scored. I mean, the Rangers could have sent him there. I think by the time he hit third was about when the ball was hitting the cutoff man. And there's no way Corey Seager with his bad hamstring, first off, you don't want him sprinting like that. You can sacrifice, not scoring him there and having him just sit at third base with 1 out, runners on second and third. Like, you can definitely handle that as an offense, especially when you've got Josh Young and Jonah Heim coming up. And looking back at it, I mean, maybe if Bubba Thompson is pinch running for him there in the bottom of the ninth inning, then Bubba Thompson could probably score on that. But I don't think even Josh Smith, who was the most likely replacement if the Rangers were going to pinch run for Corey Seager as the winning run in the bottom of the ninth inning, I think it makes sense for them to keep his bat in there. I mean, it's Corey Seager. He's one of the best hitters in all of baseball right now. You don't want to take his bat out unless you absolutely have to. And he wasn't even in scoring position at that point. He was just at first base. So I don't think the Rangers made the wrong call not pinch running for Corey Seager there, because I really don't think it makes a difference. I think Josh Smith, maybe they sent him, but I just don't think that he would even get there on that throw. And so here you have your number 5 and 6 hitters with runners on second and third, and you just have to get one guy in from third base to win the game. And Josh Young strikes out, a really frustrating at bat. But hey, you got Jonah Heim coming up next, and Young was hitting 268 with runners in scoring position, or is hitting 268 on the season. And then you have Jonah Heim in there with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. And Heim this year has been absolutely incredible with runners in scoring position. Truly incredible. He's hitting 469 with a 1337 OPS with runners in scoring position. So I totally get them not sending Corey Seager there, and I don't know that they would have sent Josh Smith either, honestly, because you trust your 5 and 6 hitters. You trust this team to do what it's done all season long. And then you look a little bit later on in the 10th inning. I mean, obviously, Jonah Heim flew out, and that was that. But you look at the 10th inning, the Rangers had their chances there as well, and they just could not quite get it done. I mean, yeah, the Travis Jankowski single, and then, which was a hard hit ball. Mitch Garver had a hard hit ball as well. And then Leody Taveras, it looked like he stung it a little bit better off the bat than he ended up stinging it. Hit it 87.8 miles per hour, hit it basically right on the ground to the second baseman, who made a perfect play to get Josh Smith at the plate. Smith was running on contact, which was probably the right play, but just wasn't quite enough for him to get the run home. And then, that Leody Taveras fielder's choice, that had a 390 expected batting average. That probably should have been a hit in normal circumstances, but it wasn't. And then Marcus Semien, who could have driven in the go-ahead run that was at, I believe, third base at the time. Maybe he was still at second. But he had a 460 expected batting average on that ground out. It was 99.3 miles an hour off the bat. So just really unlucky breaks for the Rangers in this one. They did get some good outings out of their bullpen, but still a really, really frustrating game to lose. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about DeGrom's surgery, about rotation options, and who on the Rangers is doing well in the All-Star voting. But first, this word from our sponsors. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every day. On Thursday's show, I'll be breaking down a little bit more of Jon Gray's importance to this rotation. The Rangers take on the Angels this week. You can catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on Sirius XM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, Monday morning, Jacob DeGrom had a successful surgery to repair his partially torn UCL. Still no word officially on if it was Tommy John or not, which makes me lean towards it being Tommy John. I saw some rumors of them saying, of someone official saying that it wasn't Tommy John, but I have not seen anything truly official from Chris Young or Bruce Bochy or Jacob DeGrom, or really anybody about whether it was or wasn't. So I'm going to assume that it was Tommy John. Prepare myself for the worst, because that's just kind of how this is. And if it is Tommy John surgery, then I think we all know it. We would approach DEFGROM 1. So right now I'm still at DEFGROM 2. I'm still there. But if it does turn out to be Tommy John surgery, I'm going to kind of wait. Maybe we're at DEFGROM 1.5, I'd say. But still, glad that the surgery went well and there were no complications there. At least we got some kind of good news on that front. But speaking of good news, the Rangers are doing fairly well in the All-Star voting. The Rangers have a lot of guys who should be All-Stars this year, and they have only one right now who is leading their position. That is Marcus Semien at 700,007 votes, which is significantly ahead of the second place guy, Jose Altuve, at 363,000 votes. I kind of wanted Marcus Semien to double up Jose Altuve, and I think he should. And I think that this should be the easiest decision of literally any position on the ballot. Marcus Semien is just so much better than everybody else that is on this All-Star ballot. I mean, Altuve has been pretty good while he's been healthy, but I think he's played something like maybe 10 games this season, if that, and he might be going back on the IL. But the Rangers also have several players at second place in their position. Jonah Heim is behind Adley Rutschman. Adley Rutschman is at 460,000 votes. Jonah Heim at 320,000 votes. That's going to be a tough gap to close. At shortstop, the Rangers have Corey Seager in second place. He's got 376,000 votes to Bo Bichette's nearly over 750,000 votes. So he is doubling up Corey Seager there. Going to be tough for Seager to catch him, but I think he can. And Josh Young in second place behind Matt Chapman. Chapman has fallen into a big slump. He had a great lead. He was fantastic. One of the best players in all of baseball in the month of April. I think he actually won AL Player of the Month in April, but he has fallen back down to earth significantly. Matt Chapman has 475,000 votes. Josh Young had 470,000 votes, 470,836 if we want to be very precise. Also, the most surprising that the Rangers have this player in third place in DH voting, it's Robbie Grossman, 129,000 votes. He is ahead of Corey Julks, Harold Ramirez, Giancarlo Stanton, Miguel Cabrera, Justin Turner, AJ Pollock. He is behind Shohei Ohtani, who has 924,000 votes. I don't think he's catching him. I also don't think he's catching Brandon Belt, who has 205,000 votes. But just kind of interesting that Robbie Grossman was in third place. Among outfielders, the Rangers have Adolis Garcia in sixth place. Somehow he's behind Kevin Kiermaier. I don't understand. Kiermaier's having a great season, but it seems like Blue Jays fans are really packing this vote, getting a lot of guys on the ballot that maybe, I don't know how necessarily deserving they are. They also have Leody Taveras in 13th place. Ezekiel Durant is in 11th place. Leody Taveras ahead of Kyle Tucker, Jared Kelnick, Hunter Renfroe, Harrison Bader, Cedric Mullins as well. Just kind of interesting to see that. Also, a fun little stat that I noted on Twitter yesterday, looking at the depth of this Rangers lineup. On Monday, the lowest OPS of any Ranger was, I believe, at 782. And that's pretty solid. It was two different guys that were tied. I believe it was Lowe and Heim that were tied at 782 heading into the Monday game. But on Sunday's Astros lineup, the highest hitter OPS was in the 770s. I believe 771 or 772, which was 10 points lower than the Rangers' worst hitter. The best OPS in the Astros lineup on Sunday was 10 points worse than the worst OPS in the Rangers' Monday lineup. Just there's a fun little fact to show you the insane depth of the Rangers offense and just kind of rub it in that the Astros aren't doing super duper well at this point offensively this season, especially with Yordan Alvarez on the IL. That's a shame. Hopefully he gets better soon and then proceeds to perform poorly. Don't want any opposing players on teams that I dislike to be hurt. I would just like them to do badly. There's a lot more respect in that and all that. But anyway, looking at the Rangers rotation options, this is kind of where I would stack up their options if they decide to shake things up, or just kind of my hierarchy of where I think the Rangers rotation should kind of prioritize guys. Nathan Eovaldi, number 1, Jon Gray, number 2, Heaney, I think number 3, Perez 4, Dunning 5. Any of those 3 through 4, it depends on the day where I would rank any of them, but number 6, Cody Bradford. And then I think I would go with Cole Ragans behind him. I think that Ragans has been really misused a lot of this season. He was the story of spring training. He came out throwing 97, touching 99, and the Rangers thought, let's make this guy a big leaguer. I thought, great, that's a smart option. He is going to help your big league team right now and have some of the nastiest stuff in your pen. So maybe you throw him out there in some of those high leverage or medium leverage situations. Medium leverage until he figures out how to be a reliever, because he's never done that before, and then you start throwing him in some high leverage situations in more 1-inning outings. But no, he was basically their second long man behind Dane Dunning, which is just a really confusing place to put him. I thought that if he should be a starter, I think that ideally he should be a starter. And of the pitching, well, he's not a pitching prospect anymore because he's lost his rookie eligibility status because he's pitched too many innings, which is great, and I think he's definitely deserved that. But with the velocity breakout this year, I really think that he should be a starter, because if the Rangers have an injury, a prolonged injury to Jon Gray or Nathan Eovaldi or Andrew Heaney, then, I mean, Cody Bradford I think is ready, but still, I don't know how high his ceiling. I don't think his ceiling is nearly as high as Cole Ragans in the best case scenario for Cole Ragans. I think sending him down to AAA, which I think was what the Rangers are going to do, at least to get him some time off his feet, which he's going to have to be down there for, I believe it's 7 days or so, unless there's an injury. There's a new CBA wrinkle this year that if you send a guy down to the minors, you option them down to the minors, they have to stay there for a certain number of days unless there is an injury, in which case I think that they can call them up much sooner. But I think that sending Ragans down to AAA, clearly you heard me list off the atrocities that have been happening in the AAA rotation for the Rangers, and I think that Ragans should be a starter. I think that unless you're going to use him in high leverage 1-inning situations, then he should be down there getting stretched out as a starter, and maybe stealing some starts from some of the people in the back end of the rotation. Like if Perez continues to struggle, or if there's a prolonged injury to Jon Gray or Andrew Heaney or really anybody else, or maybe he just beats out Cody Bradford. Like, I think that the Rangers are doing themselves a disservice by using Cole Ragans like this. Or if you send him down to AAA, maybe just work on him in 1-inning outings. Every time it seems like the last 4-ish times that Ragans has gotten burnt, it's because he's been throwing multiple innings. He comes in the first inning and throws really well, and then the second inning, things start to go off the rails. That's what happened in this one. He had a it was 12 innings. I keep saying that it was 12 innings, or 11 innings that the Rangers lost in. But in the 11th inning, Ragans looked great. Actually, most of this bullpen looked great. I mean, Spores came in, had a great outing. Grant Anderson, outside of the Shohei Ohtani home run, was really solid. Will Smith had 2 perfect innings. And then when Ragans was asked to come out for the 12th inning, his second inning of work, that's when things started to get off the rails. So I think the Rangers really need to decide what they want to do with Cole Ragans. His breakout should be a blessing for him. They've kind of treated it a little bit like a curse. So I think they need to figure out what they're doing with Cole Ragans, make a plan, stick to it, and then start to reap the benefits from this guy gaining 5 miles an hour on his fastball out of nowhere and, absolutely benefit from it. But that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy first place Texas Rangers baseball.